What's going on, LinkedIn? So LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. So what's going on, everyone? It's episode 50. So, there's a disappointment. We got some bad news tonight because our guest is sick and not feeling well tonight. So Hilary will not be joining us. So you'll just get the co-host Eldrick, Jen, and myself because also Jeremy, today he has his to prioritize his full-time job. So, but hey, we could talk about being consistent, and that's why we're on here tonight. And also, what's the difference standing out when it comes to your career? What's the difference between East and the West? How do you stand out in the job market? So, yeah. So that's what we'll talk about is episode 50. We're halfway to 100. So, Eldrick, I'd love to hear from you. So, I know, unemployment rate is at an all-time high. I think it's a global thing, right? And what is it like in the East right now? Because, we get all the news on social media. Majority is about the West, right? But what is it like so that our viewership knows, like, hey, what it's like in the East right now instead of from CNN?
Instead of from CNN? I think I'll just take a proxy of what's happening in this part of the world that I'm in. I think industries, particularly services that deals with mobility or tourism, it's obvious, it's a hard hit. So, particularly for Singapore, for Malaysia, you have tourism, hospitality, and related retail that is still trying to recover. And I think that's going to be a long way. Then the question that ties into what you just mentioned on employment or unemployment numbers is that, how are we going to deal with the number of people that's involved in these industries? So there's a lot of job support schemes that's going on. There's a lot of digital transformation training schemes that's going on. And if you keep your employees, then you'll have some benefits from the government and things like that. So that's one thing. And I think there's a lot of people that has opted to get back to school, although don't really understand what's the returns from that, right? Apart from being able to duck away from whatever that's happening now and reaching the schools, I don't see anything else. Then with regards to unemployment, whatever that we see on TV, whether it's this part of the world or whether it's your part of the world, I think it's important to discern it at least into two categories: public-private. So, and they are not synonymous. They are in a ecosystem relationship, right? Because when the public sector isn't doing too well, and then there's people that's unemployed, you can imagine the kind of opportunities that's opening up in the public sector. So it's a push-pull. So what it does is it balances out the unemployment figures or the employment figures, depending on how you want to see it, right? So I'm just going to say this, and I don't want to comment on any specific policy and things like that, but I think employment overall has increased. We just have to look at the allocation of the percentages. I think there's also a lot of people now that's with public service. Okay? Statistically, that's the case. Now, are they going to stay for long? Are they really believing in serving the people? Don't ask me that. But I know people are moving around. Right, that's the situation.
So where you're at, so for those of you who don't know Eldrick, so Eldrick is located in Singapore. So what does in Singapore? I know you guys are phase 3. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are people back out and about more, going back to the workplace? What does that look like?
No. So what governs the workplace policy and the frequency of going back and things like that is by the Ministry of Manpower. So we call it the Ministry of Manpower, which is I think you guys call it the Ministry of Labor or something like that.
Yep.
But anyway, so there are guidelines, but guidelines being guidelines, they are like arbitrary and the parameters are not well ring fenced. So what they do tell you is if you go back, you need to ensure that you have workplace safety measures in place, which is relevant to the current day's pandemic. So you need to have like social distancing. So you need to have teams rotating, right? If your office is jam-packed pre-COVID, then now you can't have that situation. So you can go on a team A/B, or you can go on a marketing team is here today, so engineering team comes in tomorrow. Finance team is in today, and so your payables team come in tomorrow, and things like that. So what's really common is on a week-on-week rotation basis. I think there are some companies that are going back on a day-on-day basis, although I think it creates a lot more administrative fiasco, in my opinion, right? I mean, like, how the hell do I remember which day I'm going back? It's like, okay, tomorrow. Okay. Now the thing is, if you're going back on Monday, Tuesday isn't a problem, right? And then Wednesday is not a problem. But if you're going back on a Friday, and then on a Sunday, you'll be like, oh shit, I'm not going back. I'm not going back, right? So there's a lot of that, and plus, most of the people that's in Singapore, we are very family oriented. Exclude me. Most people are very family oriented, right? Their kids are everything, the parents are everything. So what it does is that if your kids get back to school every day and you don't, but you are the chauffeur, then life gets a little exciting, right? Like, oh, should I wake up earlier today? Oh yeah, I should. Okay, so I send my kids to school and then I'm not going to office. Okay, now I'm going home, and so there's a lot of such things. But by and large, we are in our phase 3. I think that we have pretty much accustomed to that, a lot of us, and I say this, but I don't want to mask it. I think there's also quite a lot of people that's experiencing hardship. I do think so.
And that's kind of where can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where my question comes in, Aldrich, is I'm actually curious, what is the job market like there? For example, during this past year here in the West, we had a lot of people laid off of jobs that lost their jobs. Like even our neighbor across the street lost his job. And then, as things get better, there's a lot more hiring going on. And so a lot more to choose from. So what does that look like right now?
No, I guess that the real question behind it is, even if there's an uptick in hiring, what are the kind of people and what are the kind of people they're hiring, and what are the skill sets that's being desired? I think there's a huge increase in roles that corporations are looking for, that most of us in our 30s, and I would argue even the late 20s, you might not have it. Take for instance, I was told that we are out of pocket by about 50,000 AI specialists in Singapore, and therefore we are actively hiring for them.
Oh wow.
Okay, great. I mean, like, that's great, right? But give me a fucking break. Like we're gonna find that 50,000. Let's put the issue into context, right? Where are you gonna find that 50,000 amongst, let's say, the 60,000 of those that are just unemployed from hospitality, from tourism, and from, or maybe the new graduates that can't find a job. Let's put it into context, right? So there is this kind of the gaps that you can't really close. You can't. And this is not something that you can close after attending a 3-month course. You know, like, oh, I got my certificate. I'm an AI specialist now. Can you hire me? Try that on Google. I don't think they give a shit about you. But anyway, so I think things to do with AI, with automation, they're still in place, and even within the realm of technology. Like if you talk about companies, professional services that does implementation of systems, like let's talk about the IBMs, the Accentures, and things like that. They are known to be the sweatshops, right? So long as you're willing to do it, we'll bring you in. But the attrition rate internally is very high. You might be doing SAP last year, but this year you might run out of projects. So your skill sets might no longer be relevant, right? And then you have to just keep going. You just have to keep going. So there's a lot of that that's going around, in my opinion. A lot of things are moving, a lot. And if people want stability and they don't want to do digital transformation, which is very common in Singapore, I think that's the public opportunities. I mean, with the agencies, those things don't change, right? I mean, like you look at, and I'm just making a comment out of this, nothing politics to do about it, but most G7 stimulus programs, they don't change their pitch, right? It's always about infrastructure. So if you want stability, stick with the government. I mean, like that's the way I think about it. But accept the bad part that comes along with it, which is there's going to be a lot of bureaucracy. There's going to be a lot of red tapes, white tapes, black tapes, whatever nonsense. And then your boss is everything. Yeah, and there's no room for innovation. That's what I think.
So, you know, what are things that people can do, like in the position where, hey, if they lost their job, okay, or they're unemployed? Let's talk about two groups, right? You have the younger people, or you know, more the entry level, junior positions, and then you got the senior executives, right? Those are two different bodies. You know, most senior executives are probably 40 plus, and then you know, anyone that's in their 20s, right? When you go into unemployment in your 20s versus in your 60s, it looks very different. So I would love to hear from all of us. You know, we can all share our perspective. What are things that you can do to protect yourself when that happens?
Jennifer, you want to go first? I'd love to hear from you, though.
Aldrich, I have to be honest. I'm enjoying listening to your part. Why don't you go first?
Okay. I think that unemployment, right, at 20s and at 60s. Okay. Let's start with the 20s. I think for the 20s, you don't really there are many angles to what unemployment can be. So I'll put a context to that. So if you are young, you're ready to exit the wretched education system and you're dying to earn some money, right? So that's one scenario. The other scenario is you actually managed to get a job and then for some reason you got released, okay? So for the first scenario, I think it's actually, it doesn't really matter because most people, and I talk about myself and my friends, a vast majority of my friends, when they were in varsity, they were cruising through. I don't think they really believe in the textbook that they are taught because they're American. So while it's global, while it applies, contextually, it's still a little out of, like off Asia, right? So to say that we are so in it because we have high stakes in that, it's not going to happen. So then a vast majority of those are just cruising through, getting the grades, fulfilling their scholarship and get the parents off the back, right? And then now they come out, they can be very flexible. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're a marketing graduate, you can work in a fund. You can work in a digital media agency that obviously most of them don't really pay a lot, in my personal opinion. Unless you are an influencer to begin with, you know your stuff. Yep. Right. Yeah, sure. Then you command a premium. but that predates your work ethic way before that. And how many of the people that you know at that age actually does that? Very, very little. I mean, the enlightened ones, not those who, they chew on content from the net, thinking that so long as you touch your phone, it's an addiction.
Oops.
It's not exactly true. I mean, if you speak to a trader, and you tell the trader, hey, you are so addicted to your phone. No, I'm not addicted to my phone. I'm making my living off the phone. Oh, buzz off! Don't tell me what to do, right? So I think with those that are seeking a job, they're a lot more flexible. But there's going to be a lot of musical chair shuffling down the road, because now they're just trying to deal with life. It's the same for those that got unemployed in the 20s. I think, because if it's your first job or second job, you don't really get penalized down the road. Because all you have to explain is that, I've gone through this in the 2020s, 2021, and that's why I got off the track that I want to do, and I'm doing that, and now I'm trying to come back. I mean, you probably will lose a little bit of a premium. I mean, you probably won't have a pay increment, you probably have stagnated, and things like that, but it's still okay. And then what's going to happen to this group of people is that they are going to plow in a lot of money on professional education. It's obvious. So what's going to happen when this whole damn thing is over? You're going to have like the entire population of project management professionals, digital marketers. What do we have?
Coaches.
CAs, CPAs, coaches, money coaches, life coaches, whatever, right? So that's inevitable. So that's in the 20s. If you ask me whether it's going to affect their career path, I don't think that's going to be the case, because when we have all been through our 20s, I don't think we really think about career path. It is in our age now that we start thinking, what the hell am I doing with, my life, my job, and what career I'm trying to carve out of that. So in the 20s, that's not really a problem. It's really like, okay, if I'm going to jump ship, am I going to get a 10% pay increment? Am I going to get a 12%? What am I going to get? Then for those that's in their 60s, and by the way, I don't think people in their 60s are in their twilight. I don't. But for those who are in that age group and think that they are in the twilight, I don't have a word of sympathy for them at all. I don't. Now, where I do have that sense of, I feel bad for you is are those who are still working very hard to support their family.
Yep.
And the job markets, the mechanics of the job market is against them, with or without COVID. It's just that COVID accelerated that. So if you think about people in their 60s, I think they're born in the 1960s now. Yeah, correct. So those that's born in the 1960s, you wouldn't have been educated in a system that talks about a global view, right? So yep. you probably would be very foreign and against concepts that you don't know, like international trade, foreign expat, competition. Like you're gonna hate all those people. Like, who the hell are they? I mean, they come from other countries and they snatch my rice bowl, right? So inevitably they're gonna think like that, and then they are going to be very adverse to digital transformation, because their interaction with the world is labor, like hands, labor, and those jobs are going away. So then you're gonna have a lot of the 60s. They're going to look to the government for, like, what the kind of job schemes that we have. Mm-hmm. We don't have a social safety net, so getting government handouts is never going to happen, right? So a lot of these the 60s, when you're unemployed, life can be exponentially tough.
And Aldrich, I guess when we talk about that, and then I think even with the Asian upbringing is definitely a little different, right? What happens with those in the 60s older, they're dependent on their children. because we're raised with the mindset that we, take care of the elderly, and we feel obligated. That's what we need to do. Just even me, being in the U.S., I take care of my mother, and there's a lot of that more in the Asian culture, and maybe Jen, you can speak on that versus like the American culture, right? Because with being in the States, is more about individualism. Most kids, when they're 18, they're out of the house. And, the parents live among themselves, and you have your own family, and it's a little different, right? But within the Asian homes, a lot of times, if your parents don't have a job, they're moving in. Or they live with you, after one of their spouses pass away, or even both of them. And a lot of there's a lot of stress, I think, especially during a pandemic, and when you lose, the economy's already not good. I feel there's a lot of stress on the children, who are working, because you feel obligated to. You're taught to respect your parents. You're taught, you are their retirement. Asian parents say, "Hey, we raised you, throughout your life to get to where you are." So you kind of owe it to them to kind of take care of them towards the end. I mean, I remember hearing this when I was 4 or 5,
When you were 4?
Yeah.
He does still remember stuff from that far back. It's crazy.
Yep. So. So
that's
it becomes
that's beyond the age of reason, right? I mean, like, who the hell understands what's going on at 4? I don't even remember what the.
Oh, they would say stuff like, "Hey, I'm buying you this toy, so remember when mom and dad are old, we're gonna buy go buy us a house or buy us a car."
They start the propaganda young. So because he can't argue, he doesn't have a lot of reasoning.
Propaganda.
he doesn't have a lot of reasoning at 4. So you don't argue. You're just like, "I'm getting a toy right now. Okay, I'll take care of you when you're old." There's no arguing. And then you build that into the child. This is a part of your life. I do that. I do that already with college. I have one child in kindergarten and one in 2nd grade, and they already know someday they will go to college. It's not a question for them. It's just not. And of course we explain why we feel that way. Okay. But it's, and I know everybody has different thoughts on that, and they probably think that's really cruel, but, I have very solid reasoning for that I've, from personal experiences in my life, from, Kevin's growing up years, just a lot of things that have. But we start with, you start young, because they say once you hit the age of 12, it's pretty much over. You don't know how much actually gets into their brains. So,
Yep.
I think that's what Jeremy mentioned in one of the previous episodes, right? He says that he actually wants to spend more time with his kids and playing games with them. So next time when he's older, the kids will come back and visit him. Okay, but anyway.
Do you remember? I was a really fun mom when you were small. So yeah, come to visit me. I would like to say something though, since you guys kind of shared the Eastern side of things. There's the West is, we love our parents. But yes, there's definitely that independence. There's definitely, some homes will be like, well, you're 18, but if you don't want to go to college, you can live here a little bit longer, or you can live here, save money, and go to college. But usually as an 18-year-old, even from my experience, I was ready to get out of the house. Like, I couldn't wait to get out and be independent minded. So it really depends on your home situation. How good your relationship is with your family, and what you're aspiring to accomplish. As far as when they get old, I think a lot of us are trying to build a retirement plan. So when we start in the workforce, especially in corporate, they're always talking to you about your 401k, and you have that available in your corporate office job or your corporate job. And so you start building that from the time that you enter the workforce. If you're going in professionally, let's say out of college, or or you're doing insurance sales or something like that, but they always have that available. And so some parents really talk to their kids about that retirement plan. And then some parents may not really think a lot about it. They're just working and living. But it really just depends on the family. So I've seen families that, they don't maybe have, they get to an old age. This is the best way to put it. They get to an old age and they need to supplement their parents' plan because the parents weren't able to create a full retirement plan that covered them financially for the rest of their life. So therefore, the kids will step in and supplement whatever the parents need. Sometimes, like for something that I know is different from, at least from Hong Kong and places like that, is they don't have something in place like Americans where we, of course, I'm kind of going off of what Kevin's told me, but we pay taxes every year or throughout the year in order to keep our roads good, in order to provide for those who don't have food. So we have like food stamps. So there's government assistance to help people. There's also government assistance to help the elderly. So, and we even have government insurance. So sometimes that can help, if a family wants to place their parent in a nursing home. So a facility. So that can help pay for that. So there's so many different options that I don't think a lot of Asian countries offer that I'm aware of. And so it just depends. But then I know people that also take in the parent and take care of them for the rest of their lives, especially if they have like Alzheimer's, dementia, and they really love that parent and they just want to, take care of them as long as they can, or they don't have the funds to put them somewhere. So it all depends. So that's kind of a long story there, but.
But it's a very good one. I mean, so by and large, do you get a choice to say no? Like, you're on your own, mom. Like, no, I have to take care of myself, or I have to take care of my own family because I have 3 younger ones. So is it like okay to say no? Is it like do you guys have like a moral obligation against that, or like how is it like?
Well, I think for ourselves, we would each have to deal with, is this the best for them and for us, or is this just selfishness? Like what? For me, like I do believe in being sacrificial if we're able to, but if it's going to bring a lot of, this is the only way I know how to say it. If it's going to bring a lot of like animosity, not a peaceful atmosphere in the home so that my children can grow up good, and it brings too much stress, then it's something that you need to think about. Is it really worth it? But, obviously, if your parent has nowhere else to go, I think anybody's going to take care of their parent unless they're just horrible people. Most of us would take them in. But the parents don't want to be a burden either. So that's kind of the hard part.
But I think that's the biggest difference, Jen, is I think just from the experience of both, East and the West. I think in the West, you don't have as much obligations. The parents didn't plan on it from when you're young that, hey, in the future, I'm going to depend on my kids. They're not betting on that, And the government is designed, there's enough stuff out there where you could survive if you work a normal, job, any kind of job most of your life, right? As long as you pay taxes, the government's available, if you don't have the pride to take the, funds that's available. But I think most of them, most Western parents don't hold it against you, right? But I think from my experience, like having more Asian parents, they almost make it like you're being disrespectful. You're not honoring, your parents by doing this, So it's easier to say no, right? But if you say no to an Asian parent, you're gonna live a life of agony from even the aunts and the uncles and everyone's gonna judge you. Oh, I can't believe, Kevin didn't take care of mom and dad, blah, 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 And so it's just I think that's where the biggest difference is, Eldrick. So.
It's not a guilt thing here because the parents want to be independent. So it's kind of more if there's no other option, or if the best option is for them to be with you in your home and you get along with that parent. But I mean, if you said no to a parent, you're only saying no because they have a good option. Like, there's somewhere good for them to go that's safe where they can still live independently. So it really just depends on the scenario. I mean, I think a lot of people probably feel like I do. I feel obligated to make sure my parents are taken care of. It's not something that they guilt me to do. It's just something that I love them and I want to do because, they raised me. I mean, it's, I don't think anybody is more special than parents.
Yeah.
No one's usually closer than your parents,
So I want to kind of redirect back to talking about the whole 20s and the 50s, 60s, right? So I think one of the things too that we have to think about, one, the East and the West, when you're younger, you lose your job. Someone in the East might be more obligated because they're not just taking care of themselves, they're also taking care of mom and dad. So, and maybe a family of, 4, with kids, wife and everything, or vice versa. Maybe the wife is taking care of the husband. Who knows, right? Or both of them are working. So I think there's that responsibility. And I think most of us in the States, we can say if we're in our 20s, we lose our job, it's just me. You have this nice single life, 25, 30, it's just you, maybe a girlfriend or maybe a boyfriend, so the responsibility maybe is a little different, a little less pressure when you lose your job. But at the same time, I think when you lose your, I was in my 20s when I experienced, my first layoff. And, for me, it wasn't devastating, right? My first layoff I experienced, I was excited in a way because I got a severance package from the company. And actually, that's when I started my first business, right? I ended up, I think, with a $15,000 severance package, and I was in my 20s, graduated college, worked, 3 years in an engineering job. Super excited. And just, hey, let's see what the new opportunity is. And the funny thing is, that's when I first started on LinkedIn. And I think it was in 2004, and that's how I found out about LinkedIn because I was looking for a new job. LinkedIn was starting up. I wanted to do something that's different from what everyone's doing with their resumes. So as we're talking about standing out, I started using LinkedIn. And, that's how, my first experience, I think, with job hunting on LinkedIn was back in 2004. And I remember when you're young, you got that drive. I was just responsible for myself, And
that's already the toughest thing to do, right?
Yep. And at the time, I was just, I was looking for new opportunities, let's discover new things. I felt like, hey, during my 10 or 3 years, I learned a lot at that company. Now let's just see what's out there, right? But it wasn't devastating. And then I look back now and I remember that's when I first got interested in entrepreneurship because I saw the president of the U.S. division. So our company was out of Italy. And he's sitting, and I always remember this picture, right? We had this cafeteria where everyone eats. And he was just sitting by himself. And, he looked so sad. And just, it was really hard, with his box of stuff. Just like the movies, when you get fired, you got your box of stuff and you got all this picture frames, everything in your office in that box. And I could tell, the guy's probably been there for 40 years, belt the U.S. division, and all of a sudden, just one letter, and they're closing everything, right, on the U.S. side. And so he probably have a big house, multiple nice cars, and it was right when, I remember during that time, it was right when the internet bubble was happening, right? When everyone was building websites, the internet was really big back then. And I can tell in his face, that's when I remember too, all these unemployment coaches came in to prepare us for the job market. And that's why I was like, oh, LinkedIn sounds really cool. Let's learn it, because I was young. But for those guys, it was like a huge change, right? Because you had paper resumes when they went for jobs. It was still, door-to-door sales. You fly across the country to meet clients, handshakes. And I think it was one of those moments, I remember, it was around 2004, and you probably, both of you remember, Eldrick.
I remember.
It was when things
I bought
started,
my first gold coin.
things started changing. Business was starting to change. Websites were important. It was at the beginning. And when that layoff happened, the older people were devastated because there's so much change. And so it goes back to like today. I think it's a very similar situation. I think the pandemic accelerated, like you said, Eldrick, for change. And all of a sudden, for the people who don't believe in social media, who didn't believe in virtual meetings, they have to adapt. It's not even a choice, right? Whenever COVID happened, no one wants to see you. So even the guys that were older, they have to do Zoom or, whatever, Google Meet. It wasn't a choice. And what I can say is it doesn't matter what age you are. Like for me now, I'm like in my 40s, and I look at it. I listen to the guys that are a lot younger than me on my team and just keep that open-minded. I never want to be that 60-year-old that goes, no, because, when Kevin did it, it was on LinkedIn. So we have to prospect on LinkedIn, no, I want to be open-minded. If someone says, hey, if I can dance and sing on TikTok and generate some income, let's go for it. But you better show me, that you can generate income, or, hey, we aren't wasting time and effort. So I think for those of you who are older out there, if you lost a job, just be open-minded, listen to your grandkids or your children. If they have a recommendation, they're out there. They know, like I have to listen, like my kids, right? I'm an idiot when it comes to video gaming. Unlike
You mean like
German.
Animal Crossing?
Yeah. I don't even know how to sign in. I don't know how to create a character. I don't even know like Minecraft, like how to push the buttons. I'm just like pushing everything. I don't know. So I listen to my son because he's the expert. He knows a lot more than me. It's okay, And for those of you younger, it's easy when you're young to get prideful. And when you lose a job, be okay to just, if 6-7 months down the road and you're job hunting and you can't find anything, it's okay to take a job that you think you're worth more. It's okay. What younger people have that we don't is time. You still have a lot of time. So what that means, you have time to, if you got what it takes, right? You can restart your career, jumpstart it again. Show people what you can do, And it's okay to take on a crappier job. It's called survival. I think nowadays, some young people, the reason there's unemployment is they're picky, And, I always say, losers can't be choosers. I remember a time where I worked at a fast food restaurant and I had a college education, work for, Fortune 500 company. And then I went and fried chicken, and I hated it, hated it, did it for a year and a half. And then I met Jen, right? But I even learned during that time, right? I learned, I learned how to work really hard and be okay with it, and now I can take that into my life now. I am okay if I'm not a CEO, not a founder. I'm okay with working for someone. It's whatever you have to do to survive. So that's my take. I guess if you're older or if you're younger, that's the difference. It's just time, right? If you're older, you don't have as much time, right? And then nowadays, you have internet, and everyone can attest to that. You can start businesses. Just like Aldrich said, there's more coaches, mentors than ever, right? And you can be a YouTuber. You can make money on TikTok. So there's just a lot of ways to make money, but just don't forget, with anything, it requires hard work. It requires consistency. You don't become a YouTuber overnight. The people that actually make money, that takes work, so.
Well, and I think you can build influence while you're doing a job to support yourself. Yep. So, I think one of the things that Kevin and I talk about a lot is personal branding. And I think at any age that's important, but especially in your 20s, but also in your 60s, jumping on LinkedIn and building that personal brand or sharing the knowledge and wisdom that you have, and just building up, your personal brand, because who you are is really going to stand out whenever you're looking for a job. And then I always, and also it follows you anywhere that you go, no matter what industry that you're in, no matter what job you're doing, what job position, you have that personal brand behind you. And the other thing that I was thinking about is, I don't know about you guys, but I'm from the generation where my parents told me, and different people in my life told me, from 9 to 5, if you don't have a job, your job is to look for a job. So you shouldn't be, just sitting around. So build your profiles across social media. If it's LinkedIn, if you're older and you want to stay kind of in the professional sense, that's fine too. But wherever you want to build that influence, do it. But then also show up and make it your job to get a job, and do something while you're building the other thing to just get you by, and I think what Kevin said is just staying humble and being willing to do whatever it takes, and Kevin tells me all the time, and he tells my boys, if you can't be too prideful. It doesn't matter if you've been a CEO, if you have to clean bathrooms or be a janitor to support your family until you can get the job of your dreams, then that's what you have to do.
But you better be the best janitor.
You better be the best janitor.
That's what I tell my kids. If you're going to be the janitor, you better be the best janitor.
But don't be too prideful to do something, even if you feel it's beneath you, because it's a matter of survival. And, honestly, that goes along with just hard work ethic, but just being humble is important.
I think that in recent years, which I think it goes beyond recent years, but chiming the hard work ethic is out of vogue, right? I mean, but we all know that is what it is, because I find this really fascinating. And then I happened to be reading a book, I think it's from Jordan Peterson, and I thought, hey, wow, that guy, alpha male, I liked it. So the way he thinks about things, it opens up. Like he was saying, to hell with free speech if you don't have responsibility. So his point is, stop chiming about freedom, free speech, and things like that if you do not want to be held responsible for making it happen. And I thought, wow, that's the thing, right? What's the point of telling that? I mean, I'm not against any ethnic or nationality or any country, but if you all you want to do is to say, I want to be free. I don't want to be mandated to stay at home. I don't want to wear my mask and things like that. Yeah, sure, you can. But you have a responsibility. You have. Don't wear a mask. Stay at home. Are you willing to? So I think for people who says that, whether you want to do hard work or you don't want to do hard work, sure, the choice is yours, but you have to bear the responsibility. You have to. If you want to retire and enjoy your 60s to 80s in peace and things like that, you have a responsibility to your own wallet today.
That's good.
You have to have that. It cannot be, okay, I'll give you an example. It can't be that Kevin and Jennifer goes for a dinner in a restaurant, and then after they left the restaurant, Eldrick comes and pays for the bill. Which finger do you want me to show you? Like the second one, the third one, the fourth one, or So I think that the hard work is an expression of the way we absorb responsibility, and it's not for anyone else, it's for ourselves. And please, for fuck's sake, if you can't even take care of yourself, stop being so altruistic to take care of other people. Because
100%, amen.
Because you are just gonna die. Like, I'll put it point blank, you're just fucking gonna die, right? So how do you want to take care of your family? I mean, like, I've gone through military. Like, you got to clean your bed, you got to clean your bunk and things like that. Don't help other people. You can help yourself first. Make sure yours is tip-top, and then if everyone else does it, I mean, it's
Eldrick, that's why you and I are friends.
I mean, like, I guess so. But the point is that so one thing, I'm not against people wanting to have a life of their own, without going to work because it's toxic culture and people that you don't like to interact. I get that. I don't like that too, but I keep it in my back pocket that one day I might need it. Mm-hmm. You never know. So one day I might need it, right? And the important thing with the retirement rhetoric is that you got to understand that you can't get everyone else to pay for your bill. You can't. I mean, if your retirement, if you're very happy because you're living a retirement, but it's 100% funded by your children, the way you're creating happiness is to create unhappiness on someone else. Mm-hmm. I despise you. Even if you're my parents, I despise you. I'm sorry, my aunt taught me that. Mm-hmm. Like you're irresponsible. Even as an elder, where's your wisdom? Like, where's your wisdom? Like, you have gone through. So obviously, you have gone through the tough years in the 1960s, 70s, right? Everyone goes through that. Like, nations are trying to be independent, and then we don't have jobs, and then there's no housing and things like that. And now we have that level of prosperity that you have never enjoyed in your younger years. But the way you're enjoying it is to get someone younger to foot the bill. Like, I have big question marks on that. And if that is the model for a country to be prosperous and to support their graying population, I'm out. I'm sorry, man. No way. Like, what am I paying my taxes for? I mean, I'm bounded by the Constitution. I get that, but so I'm living my prime to support the graying population. I mean, like, with good use, I'm in it. With abuse, I'm out. Because then it takes away my life and energy for building my own retirement in the future. And what about my kids, right? So if you think about a falling domino, right, it's always that one domino. No.
And
Not
it
for me.
becomes a cycle. It just
Right.
continues. Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to leave the how should I say that the emotional thing aside, but the dynamics is already against it. My mom was born into a family where she had 10 siblings, so the hierarchy is that 10 support 2, but my mom only has me now, so it's 1 support 2. So if you think about the dynamics behind it, the stress fractures are in the system. How much more do you want your children to support you? I mean, like, we can have a very candid conversation, which I'm very certain you're going to be very angry with me, because I'm just going to point to you the reality that you're not going to accept. Your children cannot afford to pay 100% of your bill, so you better pay some of it. You have to. Sorry to say that. So whether you're American, you're a German, you're a Brit, you're a Russian, you're Chinese, or you're Singaporean, I'm just going to tell you you're irresponsible. Period. End of story. And I don't want to talk to you. Like seriously, just no, like I have better things to do.
I think it depends on the scenario and also the culture. And the reason the only reason I say that is because I understand where you're coming from. And I know how Asians are raised and trained to think, and I respect it a lot. But I know a woman whose husband did not treat her right, did not take care of her and the children. And eventually the children had to save her from that situation. And she worked very hard all her life and took care of herself because her children at that point had already gotten older. She had 1 teenager left at home, so she took care of herself and that teenager. And she did whatever she could do, whatever she was capable of with limited education. And she ran her own business for years. And then when she couldn't run that business anymore, she became a caretaker for elderly people. And she worked hard at that until she was probably in her 70s, maybe 80s when she stopped. And I know to this day, she still doesn't make a lot from the Social Security that comes from all those years of hard work. It's not enough to live off of. But because of the things that are available in our country with government insurance and government stuff, and then her kids come in to make sure that she's taken care of. But that's an example of someone who they worked very hard. They were never lazy. They supported themselves all their life, still want to be independent, but they do have to rely on the government and also their children to help them because they were limited in education for whatever reason, I don't know. And then maybe they weren't encouraged as a female in that era because she's very old. So, I mean, it just depends. It's different if somebody doesn't really try. They just kind of get through life and then they get there and there's no retirement plan. But there's some people that just never can, for whatever reason, never are able to, you know what I'm saying? They're just kind of more of we're just doing the best we can. We're just a typical person who never had the support, never were pushed to go to school. We got married, we had kids, she had a lot of children. And then all of a sudden, she's by herself. There's nobody, her husband was not a good man. So you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's different scenarios. So there's people that don't work very hard and they just kind of get by and they live paycheck to paycheck. That's different because they're just trying to get by. They're not bettering themselves. But then there's some people who they do the best they can with what they have and they still don't have enough at the end. So, and I know the attitude is everything in that too, because if the attitude is just my one son needs to support us because we just don't want to do anything anymore, then that's different.
I'm not referring to the people that you just described, in fact, those who try to get a decent living for themselves, I think they are very endearing. They attract people around them to support them. But what I'm referring to are those who are the non-responsible retirement practitioners, so to speak. I think it's a very hefty bill. It's a very, very hefty bill. And don't use entitlement or filial piety as a way to sugarcoat that reality. Like you should take care of my final 30 years of my life because you're my son or you're my daughter. Okay, I'm totally will never appeal to me, and my parents know that they will never try that on me because I will just walk out of the house, and I did that. I was gonna, and my dad will panic. He'll be like, "Uh-oh. You better not want him to walk out of the house." So that's what I think, and I think circling back to what the topic on the employment for 60s and the 20s that Kevin just mentioned, I think that when you're in your 20s, I think I sound like an old man when I say this, but I say this because I say this with a lot of hindsight, and what I've gone through and what I'm going through now. In reality, no matter where you are in your life, you are not going to know exactly what you need to do. You won't. And I guarantee you, if I were to ask you, Jennifer, or ask you, Kevin, you might not be specifically clear what exactly you want out of your life, even though you're in your early 40s. And I'm very transparent. I'm in my late 30s. I think so too. And I think I've gone through a lot, right? So for those in their 20s who's thinking, I'm not looking for a job because I'm not too sure which field I want to get into and things like that. The point is, if you don't, you will be in the same situation or predicament today, tomorrow, the day after, next week, and the next month. Because the way we find out is to be a practitioner, to do something. So it's the same thing as getting better. So if you want to get better at something, you have to keep doing it. If you want to find out what that is, you have to try it out. So in your 20s, when I would say that to an extreme, it is the best time to be a bankrupt because you don't have much to lose. What can you lose? A house, a car, a family, your children's university fees that you're saving up for. Cannot be. You got nothing. So why not try it out? I mean, like, go do that job that has an offer for you, which maybe you think you don't have an affinity. That's great. It's good. Try it out. Meet people. Have conversation with people. What kind of people that you want to stick to, you find your way. I mean, like one step at a time. And then listen to people that are very open. Not people who tell you not to do something. So there are two types of gurus, right? There are two types. Those who openly embrace a lot of things, and they'll share with you their vulnerabilities. Like, oh, I'm so old, but I get onto Facebook. I don't really like it, but I get onto LinkedIn. There's this. That's good. And there's the other group of gurus. Oh, don't do this. As a teen, don't drink alcohol. If you're growing up, don't touch social media. When you're in office, don't backstab your boss. The don'ts, right? I would say that if you're younger, don't listen to the don'ts. Listen to those that are vulnerable because they're always doing something. They're always sharing with you, right? The moment you listen to a guru that says don't do social media, you lose out on potential sources of revenue. It could happen. You lose out on understanding what personal branding is. You lose out. So I would say, just go for it. Like literally, embrace those people who tell you to do something instead of don't do something. And in reality, come on, don't do something is so easy. Don't work hard. Oh, that's easy. I'll just stay at the sofa and watch TV, right? Don't write a blog. That's easy. I'll go and watch a movie, right? So no, I think when you're in your 20s, whether you're employed or unemployed, just be very humble and keep doing things that you never know, and you don't, because it's going to come in very, very helpful when you're in your 30s and 40s, and when you don't want to be caught in a situation where my job is the only hanging thread to everything in my life, which is my family, my expenses, my car, my house, and my retirement. Because once you lose that, you are stripped of your dignity.
That's good.
You don't have your confidence anymore. Like, shit, there's no way. How can I do this? I need to look for another job. When in reality, if you have the exposure, you can do many more things while searching for a job. That's my point.
I'm actually curious too, Aldrich. You know, I don't know how it works in the East, but this is going to sound really funny, but I've watched movies, and I've heard of stories of people who just go in and they say, I'm not sure what I want to do yet, but I think I really want to do this job. And so I'm going to go in and I'm just going to offer my services. I'm just going to offer to work for them for free, so I can just go in and learn, because most people won't say no to somebody who doesn't even care if they get paid. It's kind of like an internship, but you just basically say, okay, for example, what's that movie with Will Smith in it, where he goes and tries to get in with the on Wall Street with the
the happiness one.
Yes. Yeah. So isn't it? I think it was kind of like that, where whatever you need to do, you're willing to put in the work. You're willing to give of yourself while you're young, especially if you're living at home. Take the opportunity, and I wish that I had have known this back in the day, you know, and no one really wants to work for free, but that's kind of what makes it unique and what makes you stand out. Yeah, The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. It makes you stand out above the rest, because that's typically, no one wants to work for free. I don't want to give my time. But you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it to explore different types of things, to see, what do I want to do with my life? You know, I think you can even do that before you get into your 20s, actually, when you're, 16 and up, while you're still going to school. And you can go, what do I want to study? What do I want my education? What field do I want to go into? And I feel that we don't, I don't know how many people encourage their kids, but I don't see a lot of encouragement to go explore. I just see encouragement to go to McDonald's and get a job, whatever, fast food, whatever you need to do. It's time. You're 15, you're 16, go get a job, which I agree with. They need to learn work ethic. But what if they're out exploring what they want to do with their future? They're still learning work ethic, but you're also, really exposing them to all different types of things in the workforce as well. So just some thoughts. I was kind of curious. I don't know how that would work in Asia, because I know, like, your parents' expectations are quite high for you guys, even just in your studies. So I don't know how you would really have time to go, I'm going to go offer to be this, the CEO's coffee boy. I'm just going to serve him coffee. I'm just going to learn from him. I'm just going to be in the workplace and see how it works. You may not even have time for that, but what's your thoughts?
I think it's quite a weird paradigm, isn't it, Kevin? Like, if you have like Hong Kong parents, I don't think they think like that too, right? They're like, get some part-time money. That's not too bad, but then you got to think about the future, right? This is not the money that you need to earn. The money that you should earn, you should be a high income earner.
Yep.
And therefore, if you want to be a high income earner, you got to go through
Study.
the system, the studies, and things like that. It's more like that. It's more like that.
Yeah.
The
Asian parents will rather work hard themselves and pay you and make sure you don't work so you get good grades, because they don't want you to go McDonald's. That's not important to them. For them, it's the end goal. It's like, hey, I want you to be an engineer, so then take
Or a
care
doctor.
of me, or a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah. They don't care about the $7.50 an hour, They care more the 6-figure. So.
No, but I meant, like, for example, with the pursuit of happiness, which I do understand what you're saying. I do understand what you guys are saying. I just meant like that, where they're like, I need to do something. That guy, Will Smith is like, I need to do something to change life. So I have to do something drastic to really make a change. Okay. The people that are doing this job, they make money. So how do I get in there? I need to get in there. Okay. Whatever I have to do. Work for free, whatever. I need to learn this thing. So
I think, it's pretty good. So, because that's something I think Gary Vee talks about a lot, right? And
well, I mean, that's his key takeaway.
You see his videos where he's saying, like, he doesn't pay much of his employees, and he said, hey, if they want to be close to the sun, which he says himself as the sun, right? Then you would do whatever you can to, he said, hey, I tell the guys that come work for VaynerMedia, hey, if you want to work for Gary and be close to Gary, then he goes, figure it out. Maybe 4 of you live in an apartment in New York. And he goes, I pay very little. Like, he's very blunt. He goes, what you get out of it is you can say you work for Gary. He said he pays very little at his company. And people, usually, all these young guys come interview and their mouth drop because how little he pays. And he goes, well, but you get to say, on your resume that you work for Gary, So I guess it goes back to, like, hey, are you able to survive your willingness and to do it, right? It really just depends on the end goal. So, yeah. But before we leave tonight, we've been here for an hour, so I want to be cautious of everyone's time. But back to just really quick, like, standing out, right? No matter if you're in the East or the West, out of you three, what's one thing that I think makes someone stand out? No matter if it's in a marketplace or selling themselves as a freelancer, what do you think you can tell the audience out there? What's one thing that you notice about certain people? What makes them stand out?
I mean, my first thought is personality. I mean, I would say personality and hard work ethic.
I think it's
everybody's different. Oh. Go ahead. No, go ahead. That's all.
I think when you ask that question, Kevin, a lot of people are going to say personal branding and things like that. Let people know what you stand for. Let people know that you exist. And I'm a believer of that. But I think what's important is that have something to show. Because the vast majority of people are just going to be there chiming that I'm here, this is my name, and this is what I believe for. But imagine that if you can be that particular someone who does the same, but at the same time take out from your pocket to say, this is the catalog of work that I've done. Mm. I think you build credentials way better. That's what I think. In my opinion, that's the best way to stand out. And in my opinion, if you want to get my attention, I want to see what you have done. Mm-hmm. So don't tell me, just don't tell me like how good you are. Show me.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's very true too. In if I'm wanting a consultant, if I'm wanting a counselor, if I'm wanting a coach, I always look at the credentials. I mean, it's just a natural thing of, your experiences are important, but your education also is important. All of it, the total package. If you're going to teach me, then I'm looking for those things.
Yeah. And I agree with Aldrich 100%, 105%, because even with anything, right? I even going to a restaurant and eating, you know, if I'm going to eat Chinese food, okay, authentic Chinese food, I better have a Chinese person cooking my meal, okay? Nothing against a Hispanic or an American, but the credential,
That's going to be very
okay?
tough in the US, I think.
Oh, the credential, okay? What do you know about Chinese food, okay? I'm Chinese, okay? So same thing, if I go eat French food, I want a chef that's probably cook in France or have the training at least, right, from some kind of French, you know, institute. But for me, I think also we're all in the people business. It doesn't matter if you're in sales. It doesn't matter if you're in HR. It doesn't matter if you're the engineer behind the closed doors. As much as we sometimes go, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm not a people person. You're in the people business, like it or not. If you're in this world, you're in the people business. And you have to like people. So for me, you know, the people that stand out to me are very good with people. You know, you either have to manage people, you have to work with people in order to succeed. You have to sell to people, you have to customer services people. I don't know one job that earns you money, dollar bills, that's not dealing with some people. So I think it's important, knowing, understanding people, but the way to understand people goes back to exactly what Eldrick said, is through experiences. Can you show your experience dealing with people, solving people's problem, you know? So I think it's important to be able to have that journey, that story to back it up. So, yeah. Well, I want to say thank you to StreamYard for making all this possible. And tonight, you know, Hilary couldn't join us. Hopefully next week she's feeling better. And she has an amazing story about, you know, being a Caucasian woman who works for Toyota, which, if people know, Toyota is a Japanese company. And I believe she was in Singapore, actually, so, and also Japan, and the challenges with inclusion and diversity and different things like that. So she has I think it was one of the #1 sellers on, and this One White Face is a book you can find on Amazon, and she's a TEDx speaker. So hopefully she can join us next week and feel better. And we miss Jeremy a lot. And I know he's messaging but not hopping on, so I take it he's on his job but watching BUP on the side. So well, we look forward to having you next week, and we'll talk to you folks later. Thanks for joining us. Later.